Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited about today's workshop and really looking forward to having a healthy conversation with you and about positioning your company for success and some of the tools that will be and techniques that will be shared with you about how you could use this positioning idea to keep your business moving in the directions that you want it to go to. Many might not know who we are here today, so I'll give it in a few minutes Andre to introduce himself. We were lucky to host him here in our office for a few weeks, and really excited also about the opportunity to maybe seeing you soon. It sounds like we might be able to do something in Sylvania, and I don't mean Sylvania, Ohio. I do mean Sylvania, the country in Europe, because we actually just finished a program in Ohio, and the kids, the Global Trade Mission for Youth, where they learn STEAM actually. As you know, Andrew, you spoke there, and they're like, Sylvania, that's where I live. And I'm like, not Sylvania, the city in Ohio, but Sylvania, the country in Europe. So it was an amazing opportunity to teach and expose kids for global trade and entrepreneurship and STEAM. So anyway, I just thought you might get a kick out of that.
Yeah, that's so funny.
That there's actually a small city in Ohio called
I didn't
Sylvania.
know that.
Well, lots of people didn't know that. So we actually had, as we had guest speakers come in, I kept asking the kids to tell them a fun fact. And then almost all the speakers, many of them choose to say that Sylvania. And then many of the speakers are like, oh, I didn't know that there's a country named Sylvania. I'm like, okay, that's great. It's
Small
working.
world.
It's working all ways that we want it to work. All right. So what I'll do for those who haven't heard about what we do, my name is Faris Almi. I'm the founder of International Strategic Management. We do entrepreneurship and small business development, usually supporting organizations launching entrepreneurship or small business activities in their community with a focus on the underserved, underrepresented, or under-resourced. To make that more of our day-to-day language, think of any organization in your community, nonprofit, universities, usually a smaller or medium or larger nonprofit organization that is trying to do something to support entrepreneurs, usually behind the scene, either developing programs with them or deploying programs with them in that community. We're lucky enough to work with them in that kind of strategy, but also lucky enough to work with the entrepreneurs as they get selected to go through the program. I won't bore you with too much details in what we do, because hopefully you could read more of those things online. Generally speaking, we do some of the basic things that you may think about of technical assistance and strategies. We do, of course, a lot of program curriculum and development. And one thing I would like to bring up here is the capacity building tour programs, where we actually bring people in for half-days training, half-days touring throughout the whole US. And we just finished a few programs from Kazakhstan to Egypt to Saudi. And it's always awesome to see people here learning and connecting with individuals or companies here in the US. Then, of course, can forget to mention our basic business coaching and consulting practice. We've been lucky. We've touched over 100 countries globally, and we continue to grow. And this year we're going to be hopefully adding a few more. On a yearly basis, we average about 5 to 10 countries programs wise. Right now we have a couple programs in the Middle East, Europe, and Central Asia. This is just in a high level, some of how ISM approaches this programming and the tracks. So there's a track for entrepreneurs, and there's a track for small, ESOs or EDOs, we call them. So entrepreneur support organizations or economic development organizations. And one of our most popular programs is the capacity building tours, as well as the second one, which would be training the trainers, where we actually equip the individuals to support these startups or the small business development activities. Our work is really limited, though it might sound broad, it's really limited to these 5, I call them focus areas or 5 pillars of ISM. I'm not going to bore you with them because you could read them. And then we've been lucky to give you some example of some of the individuals and organizations that we work with globally, from creating an entrepreneurship ecosystem to creating small business development to supporting the creation of funding for these startups or small business companies, and so on and so forth. I'm really excited about the positioning because, one of the things that we know and we all believe in, the position that you take within the marketplace could position you to attract the right people and therefore put you in the right places to allow you that not have to do too much explanation and be able to get away with your lingo to speak and then get them business versus if you were to not use your lingo in the mainstream, you probably wouldn't get any business because no one knows what you're talking about. So helping you position your company in the right place would be very powerful. We were lucky to have Andre with us here a couple of weeks and focus, working with us actually on some of the things that we did in ISM and making sure that our position continues to be the way we want it to be and where we want to go, allowed us to really say, you know what, we have an opportunity to showcase some of the work that we could be doing here in the US, specifically about positioning. And, this is a great way to showcase awesome talent from somewhere else that could potentially, show you different ways to look at it. So with that, I think I could hand it over to you, Andre, I could brag more about you, but I feel like I hope that you do some, and if you don't, I'll make sure that I'm around to come back and say something, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you so much, Faris. So I'm gonna share my screen. There we go. So just two words about me. I co-founded my first startup in 2015. It was a B2B virtual reality, augmented reality. So that's, the thing the goggles that you put on your head and it transports you into another world. That's what we were doing, selling it all across the world from USA, Canada, all over Europe, China even. In 2018, we basically joined forces with another agency, and we co-founded another startup, which was called Kobe. And Kobe was a mobile app that helps dyslexic children learn to read. I'm going to be telling a bit more about it because it's closely related to how I basically came to talk about positioning a lot. Next to that, I'm a mentor, a lecturer, an advisor to early stage startups. And in last August, basically, I decided to take all of my knowledge and start my own company, Tangible Growth, where basically I just help startups with positioning. And so why positioning? It was actually part of the story that I was explaining about Kobe. So Kobe is a mobile app that helps dyslexic children learn to read. You can see it on the screen here. And basically, our founder had this amazing idea of coloring letters to help dyslexic children basically find the right words because, letter reversals and stuff like that are very present with these kids. So they change. They don't know whether a letter is a B or a D. And so by coloring these letters, it can help you read fluently. And we managed to get quite good traction in our local market in Slovenia, Europe. We gained a couple of thousand users in the beginning. The traction was really good. People were paying for that, but obviously we wanted to penetrate the US market because half of all the money spent on mobile apps is spent in the US. So, it's the best market in the world if you're doing mobile app development. And so we tried to penetrate the US market, but no matter what we did, we couldn't get any traction at all. Nobody would even talk to us. Nobody would, investors weren't interested. Our customers weren't interested. We couldn't even get them, onto Zoom calls to talk about the product, much less to convert them into paying customers. And we did a lot, this was a year of experiments, growth hacks, marketing hacks, you name it. In the initial COVID wave in March 2020, was it? We even wrote an 80-page book, which helped us acquire users for less than half a US dollar per lead, but we couldn't convert them into paying customers. That is until we repositioned our product. And this is basically where my first lesson came in. I learned that if your positioning is wrong, all of your marketing efforts will fail. Simply because, marketing, sales, and all of that, it's an amplifier. It amplifies your core. And if you're positioned poorly, nobody will understand what you do, what's your value. And so you can't even with marketing hacks, with growth hacking, with whatever, email marketing, whatever you want to try, it's just not going to work. And, you could say that this is, we were relatively inexperienced. You could say that this was a problem because of our inexperience, because, we're in the middle of Europe. You could make all sorts of, guesses why it all went wrong. But, the reality is that even big companies have the same problem. So I don't know how many of you know that, but Netflix actually started in 1997 as a DVD rental service. So it's tried to, conquer the market that basically Blockbuster was owning. So Blockbuster was this huge company at the time, renting out DVDs. So how it worked, you would basically pick up your phone, you would call a company and, tell them, I want that movie delivered to my door. And, in a couple of days, somebody would come and bring you the movie. And Netflix couldn't basically get a good market share. They just couldn't, they couldn't make it no matter what they did. That is until 2007, when Netflix noticed that with the invention of smartphones and with the invention of, Facebook and YouTube and all of that, people started changing their behavior. Basically, people weren't prepared anymore to wait 2 days to get a movie. And so, they want like when you open your Facebook page, you get instant gratification. You instantly see the posts of your friends or whoever. When you click on YouTube, you get immediate videos. And so Netflix started repositioning themselves from, a DVD rental service to a media streaming service. And they basically, it took them 5 years to do that. And by repositioning, they now had the ability to give users what they wanted. So, TV series with the click of button. Blockbuster didn't make that move. Blockbuster, just kept renting Blu-rays and DVDs and whatnot, but they didn't reposition themselves. And that's why Blockbuster today, no longer exists, or, it exists only in cult TV shows that we watch actually on Netflix. And so, it's easy, positioning is easy to get wrong because it hides as a marketing or as a sales problem. So you think that your sales are not good enough. You can see that your marketing isn't working, but you don't know actually that the problem is not in marketing, is not in sales. It's actually in your positioning. But if you dig deeper, you can notice like this symptoms. So you have a few loyal customers that are with you for a long time, but new customers just don't know what you do. You have a long sales process, low conversion rates, people object your pricing, you get poor or no inbound leads. People get lost in the funnel because, you communicate different things through different channels. And so today, basically, we're here to make sure that, this doesn't happen, or that, if you have these problems, that you can solve them. So let's start at the beginning. What is positioning? So in short, positioning is the context that you give to your customers or your leads so they understand what's your value. So basically, they have to understand 3 things immediately: who you are, what you do, and why they should care. You can easily, test that. If you see an ad, let's say on Facebook, and if you don't immediately understand, what the product is or what the service is, and, if you should care or not, you're not going to click on that ad. So basically, the ad did not attract your attention. And this is something that needs to happen instantly. And, most of the founders that I talk to, they just say, we're going to ignore positioning, or, they just do it really quickly, like, it's good enough. But the issue is you can't ignore positioning, because positioning happens whether you want it or not. So, you have, you basically, if you saw the ad on Facebook, you got your opinion about the ad. And, if your brain told you this is not interesting, the context happened, you're not interested, and that's it. So you can't ignore positioning, because it is going to happen, and whether you want it or not. So it's better basically to control what kind of context do we give out to our customers and leads. And one of the biggest issue that I see in small companies and startups is they try to sort of rush through it. and go to the growth stage, go to the scale stage. Everything is about, how are we going to build a community of 10,000 people? How are we going to, become product led, where a product does all the sales for us and we don't even have to do anything? The product will sell for us. How can we have, the best sales team so that, we get inbound leads, the sales team sells to them, and that's it. We have basically a working system, right? But the issue is that without product market fit, you can't scale. It's as simple as that. Just don't try to scale the unscalable, because if you don't, like, all the marketing or the product-led growth or the communities, everything is basically amplifiers. So if you don't have your core, you can't amplify. You're amplifying nothing, or you're amplifying poor results. So it's just going to lead to more results. So basically, what the goal in the beginning is to achieve product market fit, right? Because basically good product market fit leads to lower conversion rates, lower costs of higher conversion rates, lower costs of user acquisitions, which means no overspending in marketing, which means we're paying less for the customers that we attract, right? But the issue is that when we have marketing problems, sales problems, or anything related, we just think about the product, right? So we think about, hey, maybe if we add this feature, then customers will love our product. Or if we change something, the customers will like our product and we'll get more customers. But the issue is, it's not your product's job to attract customers, right? The customer needs to see your message to get into the product. So basically the customer needs to see how you present your product to get into the product. And if we just break down this term product market fit, which we all want to achieve, it consists of the product, and we all know how to develop a product, but it also consists of market fit. And market fit is basically how you present your product to the market. And this is basically positioning, messaging, and all of that. And most of the startups only work on the product part of product market fit, which means that according to Forbes, it's like 72% of startups fail because they never achieve product market fit. And it's because they're constantly in the development mode. Basically, they're always improving, iterating the product. They're never thinking about, what's the context that we give out? What does the user see before he gets into the product? How can we attract them with the right message? How can we attract them with the right ads and all of that? So that's the market fit, or the positioning part. So in order to get to product market fit, usually, and I've seen this, basically I've worked so far with about 40 startups, and it was never the product. The product was always good enough to sell. The issue is always in the positioning or the market presentation. So basically, if you want to get to product market fit, if you want to improve your conversion rates, if you want to lower the costs of user acquisition, if you want to gain traction, you need to work on your positioning. So how do we do that? Now, I have my own framework to do that, and today I wanted to use this half an hour, 45 minutes to walk you through it. And then in the end, I'm going to share a resource where you can do it for your own startup, for your own company. Basically, my framework goes in 3 stages. First, we need to think about setting up the product foundations. This is basically checking who we are doing this for. Who is that person? What's the problem that they have? And how can we solve that problem? In the next step, we need to eliminate the competition, because there are going to be similar products on the market or services on the market. So how can we differentiate ourselves from everything that's out there? And finally, we need to execute and keep focus on that. And let's get through every stage one by one. So in the beginning, if you don't know precisely who you want to sell to, if you don't know what problem to focus on, if you don't know what your customers expect from you, that's basically your first issue that you need to tackle. You need to niche down to serve one customer segment, and you need to focus your efforts also on solving one problem for that customer. That may not be the case in like 100% of startups, but usually in the beginning, it's better to serve one customer because you can get to know them better, and you can get to basically you can better serve their needs. So to achieve this, we need to niche down, focus on one customer segment, and figure out, what's the transformation that they're expecting from your product. They're at the point A, how do we get them to a happier place? That's basically it. And then we need to, present that in a simple way. So let's say that you're creating a CRM software, right? So customer relationship management software. How are you going to find out who your best fit customer is? The easiest thing to do is basically to just go back to your financials, take a look at the financials for the past 12 months, and you can then easily see, for example, let's say that 80% of your revenue comes from small businesses and 20% from enterprise businesses. What should you do? Well, obviously, you should focus more on SMEs, on small businesses, because you can grow them better because you have more testimonials by them. Clearly, they see the value in you, otherwise they wouldn't convert. So if you made $100,000 and 80,000 came from small businesses, you can just say, all right, so small businesses are my best fit clients. What next question? What do they want? What's the value that they need when it comes to CRM software? Well, for small businesses, it's probably going to be something like simplicity, accountability, notification. So basically what they want to have, it's a simple product, because this is a small team, they don't need something complicated. So they need a simple product. It needs to keep them accountable. It needs to have notifications so that, I have somebody to follow up. So the software says, hey, today you need to call John or whoever, right? And so these are the values that they care about, right? If you create a CRM software that has, AI integrated, but your customers don't see the value in it, it can be the best AI in the business. It's still not going to sell because that's not the value that the customer needs, right? And so this is basically where we come to the end of the setting your product foundations. So we know the customer segment, these are small businesses, we know what they need, right? And we know that how we can solve their problems. We need to make a software that offers them, a simple way of using it. It needs to keep them accountable, and it has to have good notifications. Next step is basically to eliminate the competition, right? So if your problem is that you can't compete with bigger brands, if you have bigger competitors on the market that basically still are your customers, and that's why you can't get enough traction. If you think your product or service is not unique, or if you don't know how to explain your value efficiently, this is the stage basically that you need to solve. Because ideally, you need to find a unique place on the market to figure out how you're different from everything else out there. And this is usually something that startups stumble upon, because they just think that I'm doing something that a lot of other people or a lot of other startups do, so I'm not unique. But I guarantee you, with every customer so far that I had, we found something that made their product, their service unique. So basically, how do we do this? First, we need to find the gap in the market. This is something that customers complain about the solutions that already exist. So obviously, the solutions that we have are not ideal. Otherwise, you wouldn't start a new product. So what is something that customers complain about that you can solve better than anybody else? Then you need to find out how we can build a product that will solve that and turn that into a clear value proposition. And if we go back to the example that we have, so we have small businesses who want simplicity, want accountability, want notifications, right? Now you check the market, the existing solutions, and you see that the competitors already have simple to use products. There are CRMs out there that are easy to use. So you're not just gonna that basically that niche is already filled. If somebody wants a simple CRM, they can get it somewhere else. These CRMs also have good notification systems, but the users are complaining that they're still not keeping them accountable. That's a market gap. So that means that there is something in the market that the customers are complaining about. So our value proposition could be, our product is a CRM for small businesses that will keep your team accountable, because no other CRM will do that, right? And so now we have something unique that we can offer our customers, because there is no other CRM that can keep you accountable. In the third stage, basically, if your challenge is basically that you have no focus, you're trying too much, you're trying too many marketing initiatives, you're trying, maybe this will work, maybe something else will work, you're trying all sorts of marketing hacks. Basically what you're lacking is focus. So like creating a startup is really all about focus. Once you know how, what's the value that you're providing to your customers, you have to have relentless focus on that value. How can we produce more value? Because value equals money, right? And so again, in this case, in this example that we have, our focus should be, we will create the best product for keeping small teams accountable. And now, how does that affect, your company? When you have a development, let's say that, your founder comes out with a new feature. Let's say, you're building a CRM, we want to add a new feature. There needs to be a checklist, or somebody needs to ask the question, will this help keep small teams accountable? Otherwise, we're going away from our focus, and we don't want to do that too early. We don't want to do that before we scale. Same goes for marketing. Let's say, you're posting, you're doing social media, you're posting stuff on Facebook or Instagram. When you're posting, for every post that you create, you should ask yourself, does this show our focus? So does this show, how we keep small teams accountable? In the sales pitches, exactly the same thing. Does it convey our focus? So does the sales pitch talk about what's unique about us? And this is all basically that you need. You need, figure out who your best fit customers are. If you have customers, you need to check the financials, figure out where you get most of your money from, and then basically focus on that. Figure out what their needs are, and then develop the product to fit these needs. Check out the competition, find something that's unique about you. Find what's the one thing that your customers care about that's not there is a need that they have that's not satisfied by the current solutions, and then build that solution. And if you don't have an answer to that question, I suggest you basically go back and do interviews with your clients and potential clients, because they have all the answers. You just need to listen. And once you have that, basically it's all about the execution. So you need to have relentless focus on that thing that makes you best, to basically make it. And if you do these steps correctly, basically you build or improve your product market fit, which, again, means lower costs of user acquisition, means more customers, improved conversion rates, no overspending in marketing, no overspending in sales. And if you do that correctly, so if you remember in the beginning, I was talking about Kobe and the mobile app where we couldn't penetrate the US market. What we changed in the end was basically just a small piece of the context that we're giving out. So basically we're saying, like in the beginning, we were saying, this is a mobile app that helps dyslexic children learn to read. But if you say that to a mother of a dyslexic kid, all of our competitors in the mobile app world were fast gamified apps that they were games basically, right? So you came into the mobile app and you were just playing a game that was sort of educating your kid. Kobe was nothing like that. Kobe was basically an e-reader. And so when we changed our messaging from Kobe is a mobile app that helps dyslexic children learn to read to Kobe is an e-reader, electronic reader that helps your dyslexic children learn to read. People started responding, people started converting, people started calling us geniuses and all of that. Why? Because we changed the context of what they're going to get in the app. Before they were expecting basically a game and they got an electronic reader, and later they expected an e-reader and got an e-reader and they were happy about it, right? And so this is basically some of the responses that we got in an in-app survey. And our marketing basically started working as well. So we managed to lower the cost of user acquisition by 52%, which meant that we could now get twice as many people in the app at the same price point, right? So basically we started growing exponentially. And this later on basically led to an investment. So the team got an investment now because, you know, they could attract enough traction on the market. And the same, so completely the same thing goes for the service, right? It's not like the product or the service in this case, this is completely, basically it's the same thing. And, you know, so I just wanted to take the last few minutes to talk about the common mistakes that we usually do when it comes to positioning. The first one is doing too much. So your positioning needs to be aligned. If you're saying something, you know, on Facebook and something different on Instagram, for example, you're not like the person that's going to see both is going to be confused. So basically just align the positioning and have the whole team, not just the marketing team, but the sales team, the founder, everybody else, everybody has to sort of, you know, say the same stuff, build in the same direction. The opposite is also true. Sometimes we just do too little. So sometimes, you know, people remember those who show up. So you need to be showing up consistently. If you post something on Facebook once a week, nobody's going to remember who you are, what you do, what's your product or service. So I do that with an editorial calendar. So basically, it's just a calendar it's just a calendar that basically keeps me accountable, so that I post on LinkedIn every couple of days. The third one is not defining your niche. So founders are often afraid of niching down because they are afraid that, you know, they will sort of be leaving money behind. But actually, you know, the opposite is true. When you're basically a perfect fit for somebody's problem, if you're a solution to somebody's problem, they're going to convert much quickly, much faster. And basically you're going to get, they're going to be prepared to pay more because you're a specialist, right? So, you know, if you go to the doctor, if you have a heart problem, you don't want to go to, you know, a general practitioner. You want to go to the best surgeon there is. So the same is true for, you know, products and services. If something, you know, takes your pain away, you're going to be prepared to pay more for it. So niching down is actually the braver choice here. And then the last thing is basically taking the things for granted. So basically we should be checking our positioning, you know, at least every 6 months or so, because things change, markets change, especially after COVID, you know, things, you know, changed a lot. So you need to be in constant contact with your customers so that you understand, you know, are their needs still the same, or, you know, is there, or was there a change in the market? Was there a change in their behavior? Did we develop a product? You know, we developed a product. Is it still, like, is the value proposition still true? Are we still a simple CRM, or are we too complex to call it simple? So basically, you know, we should be thinking that at least every 6 months, you know, if not more often. And so if you want to go through every step that I mentioned, you can go to nailyourpositioning.com. You can just opt in and you get a free 7-email course. So basically every email is going to contain one of the steps that I mentioned today. And so you can just, you know, think about that and improve your positioning. So yeah, I think that's it from my side. So if you have any questions, or Faris, if you want to add something to that.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for explaining the positioning and how it works. And of course, as you know, the 7 emails course is important because building on the power of 7 from my book is, having 7 ways to touch people, although this is just one way, touching them 7 times. It's, I think, really, really powerful way to do that. So I think, at this point, we could leave it open for questions and comments and get to hear from the people who are here with us today, and and see if something that sparked their interest or sparked their question, or if they had an idea that they would like to share with us what they, their own experience or their own journey. I've always believed in these positionings and understanding the 7 ways to touch them. To your point, are we touching them in a way that is showing them that we're wanting just a sale, or are we showing them that we want to be partners? And there's no right or wrong, by the way. It's just about
No,
what is your goal and motive for those things.
absolutely.
Some people need the sales, some people need the partnership, some people need the longevity, some people just need the one transaction. Every business is so different.
Absolutely. And that's what's nice about it, because like with every client that I've worked so far, we've always had, same challenges but different solutions, because as you said, every company is different, so everybody's struggling with something else. And in reality, there is no one way to solve this issue, but we can use sort of frameworks and mental models, and if we think about this, we are going to find the right approach to solving these issues. All right, so Molly is asking, really helpful, what tools, approaches help you assess your competitors efficiently? Yeah, so this is, you can use the tools. I'm a fan of basically, I'm a fan of a manual approach where I just try to search for the competitors online, depending obviously on the, on what kind of a company my client is, because, if I usually work with tech startups and digital tools. So, obviously digital is a big part of their agenda. And so, ranking high is important, and ranking high is something that all competitors do. So that's why I usually just use Google, and now I use obviously ChatGPT, which can give you sort of, if you connect it to the internet, it can give you a really good list actually of competitors that you have. And then basically from that, you go to every website that you find, and you just map them. I use Miro.com, and it's basically just a whiteboard. You could do that with, just with a pen and paper, but basically you just map them. How can they, how do they position themselves? Are they premium, or are they, what's their value proposition basically? And you try to find a gap. That's one thing. Another thing is basically either talking to your customers or potential customers. Let them give you, who are they using right now? Whether, if you get a person on a Zoom call and just ask them, what are you using right now? That's basically your competitor, right? Because, if somebody says, right now for my CRM, I use Google Sheets, that means you're competing with Google Sheets. It's as simple as that. So just, asking the customers is the easiest way, but it's a bit difficult to get them on Zoom calls sometimes. So what you can do instead is some social listening. That means you go to, you find who your potential customers are and go to their LinkedIn profiles, Facebook profiles, and whatever, and just find what they're using there. What are they talking about? What are they complaining about? You can check the reviews of tools. What are they complaining about there? And so this is sort of all part of the competitive analysis, and you sort of need to all put it together to sort of get the big picture. And the software that I mentioned was Miro.com. So that's Miro.com. I typed it in the answer as well. It's just a whiteboard tool. I think Google has a whiteboard tool as well. And I think Zoom has one as well. So it's just a simple whiteboard. It's nothing special. It's just something I use because I'm a marketer, but you can use anything. Like you could use, you know, just a whiteboard like I have here in the background and just, you know, draw on that. That's just the digital version of that.
Yeah, one thing through my experience working with so many wonderful people, a lot of times we get caught up in all these powerful tools, but at the end of the day, it's really about the practice of doing these things, right? This what comes down to, and there's really no perfect answer of assessing. That's a great question, by the way. Assessing your competitors, and I will just like to add, you don't have to be in like the word I use is you want to be aware of your competitors, but you don't have to just spend your whole time studying the competitors, just being aware of them, not to knock them down, because one of the things I always mention that you don't want to bring people down. If someone is doing some bad things, you definitely want to, address that. But most of the times, my experience working with individuals who are maybe competing with me even for the same work are usually really great people. And usually they want to do just as good of a job as I would have done. They might have different approaches, they might have different, resources, they might have a different way of thinking about it. Generally speaking, they really want to do just as good of a job, if not better. And they're really trying to do their best, whether they can or not, that's a different story. But that's what makes it a competitive market. And I would caution us when we are talking about competitors to knock the other competitors down, because when the word I use, when you bring someone else down, part of your industry, you're really bringing the whole industry down. Now, if there are always some bad players, always, but usually my experience has been there's so little. Usually they're less than 10%, and usually and unfortunately, with any speed or any, like I call it, wind, a speed bump shows up and a problem happens, they're out of that industry and they're back to whatever they were doing before, or they're switched industries really fast. And then from my perspective, that's perfect. They came in, they learned, and hopefully they'll learn to do something better next time. And then for those of us who are doing the actual work in this space day in and day out, you can't, if you make cars and someone else comes and make cars and 3 years later stops making cars, good for you. It just promoted your cars more, because now people are going to go and look for you because you're going to be, you're around. If you're doing consulting and the training, like we do a lot of entrepreneurship and small business development, and I see sometimes occasionally people think that they could do this, because they have XYZ experience, and that's wonderful. And they come in, and about a year later or two, they're gone. And then you might think, what happened? Well, they probably discovered it's not them. They were not able to get the results that they promised. There are all kinds of reasons. And this is why, someone like, if you've been doing it for like us, an example, 20, 30 years, it's nothing wrong with having competitors. It's actually a blessing. And the more you do it, the more you could create opportunities for even others to come and compete with you. And that also elevates you. So I would just caution not to spend so much time that you're studying them that you forget who you are and what you want to do, but more focus on what you're wanting to do and just being aware of them to understand, to understand the position that you are in the marketplace and where do you fit in with them, and where are opportunities for collaborations and where there are opportunities for potentially, competing. I call it co-opetition. So you want to find ways that you want to compete with each other's, and you want to find ways that you want to collaborate with each other's, because no one person, as we all know, can capture all the markets that's out there, no matter how good or how bad we are. It's just not feasible. There's so many opportunities out in the world, and sure, it might look so small in our little micro community that we're working in, but the minute you get out of it and you get into another micro community, there are more opportunities. So, you could just focus on what you're good at, finding your position, kind of like what Andre stated, and really drill that in to make sure that people really know this is who you are, this is what you're good at, and this is what you plan to do, and this is what they expect to get from you. And then using these tools, but remember the tools, like, I say it's tools to help you do your job, but it's not to do the job. You still have to do the work. You still have to do the actual digging and things of that nature. These are great questions, Andre.
Yeah, exactly. And to add on that, I had a good experience, for example, with a competitor of mine, and basically, in the end, we ended up collaborating together because we said, if we have 20 clients right now, hypothetically, that we can reach, right? What if we, joined forces, we bring more awareness to positioning to what we do, and then have 50 clients. That means 25 for, each of us. So that's more clients for both of us. So why not do something together? So sometimes it just makes sense, especially in consulting, to join forces, be stronger together. And yeah, it's the competition is there really to, level up your game, to keep you on your toes, to make you basically want to be better. And that's it. It's not, as you said, Faris, it's not, definitely not, you shouldn't be, too concerned about them, but you can learn from them. So that's good.
Little concern.
There you go. Little concern, a lot of learning.
Because I still would like to get the business, but it's okay to compete for it.
True.
Cool. Well, I mean, clearly we could stay here all day. I want to thank for those who joined. I'd love to hear, we have people coming in and out. I'd love to see where you're calling from or what city or state. You can put that in the chat or in the Q&A section just for fun. I know Zoom will give me a report on where people called or joined from their IP perspective, but it'll be always fun to see where you joined us from today. Andrew, thanks so much for making the time, and we'll be doing more. And
Thank you.
we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Faris, for having me, giving me this opportunity. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Of course.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining, everyone. And please, if you want to put a word about the workshop today, please feel free to do that in this chat, or feel free to share your thoughts on social media or email or whatever you'd like. I'm going to end the recording now, and we'll see you next time.